I guess I just let you drive, yeah?
Let me drive. Jesus takes the wheel, mate. You know what I mean? There's no preparation here. No sticky notes. No questions. Just you and I talking shit. But I want to hear about Be Heard.
Be Heard. Of course. So Be Heard is an organization that I founded at the beginning of the year. Um, and I am on a mission to um, unlock more diverse, inclusive, and equitable workplaces. And really just try and, I guess, like move the dial forward on the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion here in Aotearoa. Um, and that's kind of born out of my own experience. I was overseas for 7 years, and when I came back to New Zealand, it was I don't know. I guess I was just kind of shocked by how far behind the conversations here were in comparison to some of the chats I was having with folks over in Europe. So I, across the course of my career, have learned the importance of this topic, probably sometimes the hard way. Um, Learned the importance of it from a societal perspective, but also very much key from a business perspective. And I guess just wanted to help more folks in roles like I was previously in talent and people understand, why this is important work and how they should be going about it.
Mm. Before we get into the weeds of like how we do this thing, let's uh let's define it. What is it? What is the vision? What are we going for here?
So the vision for me is really to have more workplaces be diverse, equitable, inclusive. I did start a little bit narrower, um, kind of singling out the tech sector because that's my background. That's where I have worked for the majority of the last 10 years. That's what I know. Um, it's also a sector that is greatly lacking diversity. So it kind of seemed like a good place to start. But the more I dove into kind of the work and particularly kind of the discovery I did around, what are the barriers that are preventing organizations from adopting diversity, equity, inclusion strategies and initiatives, it seemed that there wasn't a lot of difference in terms of sectors. Like a lot of people were facing the same barriers, regardless of whether they were in the tech sector or whether they were completely in a different sector in finance or in retail or whatever it may be. So from that, I kind of decided that, well, this isn't work that's just going to benefit the tech sector. This is work that could benefit a lot of organizations and society as a whole. So let's broaden it out and let's just see if we can crack, yeah, more inclusive workplaces across the board.
Sure, man. My mum has this saying, "People are people the world over." It's just like there's
Yeah.
actually way more similarities than we care to admit. We like to think, oh no, it's different. It's different for us. It's like, oh, hold on, mate. Probably, but it isn't. It's tech industry is probably very similar to the teaching industry, which is probably similar to whatever. And it's they're going through similar struggles. What they do on the ground is completely different. You
Mm.
wouldn't hire me in the tech industry. I don't know how to turn my laptop on most days, but it's
I was going to say, I'm worried that my laptop's actually going to die during this conversation. So I'm like fiddling around with cords while we're here to see if I can plug it in.
it's all
We'll get
good,
there.
mate. We just talk. Like I said, this is just two people talking shit and
There we go. I'm plugged in now, so I won't die.
plugged into the good. Mate, so how do we go about it? How do we go about this thing? Is it
Oof.
quotas? Is it just not being a dick? How do we go about this thing?
Um, yeah, it's a really good question. Not being a dick is definitely part of it.
It's the hardest one, right?
um, but yeah, with, I guess there's a couple of things I'll say on this. I think with anything in this space, it has to be intentional. Um, Change isn't going to happen by simply doing what we've already always done, right? Like I'm pretty sure it was Albert Einstein who said if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. So,
Right.
if we want to be, if we do truly want to progress from where we've been in the past, we have to be intentional about how we do that. So yes, not being a dick is part of it, but being very intentional about how you're thinking about that is definitely key. And then the second thing I'll say is like, probably contrary to what we were just talking about, but there is just simply no one silver bullet. There's like not one thing I could say to you today that would like advance your DEI agenda for your organization, because this work is diagnostic. And every business is different, every context is different, and every business will be experiencing different challenges, different pain points. So you really need to do the work to understand what the problem is before you can start building a solution. And I think that's probably where not a lot of companies spend enough time, is really that diagnosing piece. And when you don't do that right, it's easy to kind of come out with this laundry list of initiatives that don't necessarily have an impact and they don't get tangible results. Whereas if you kind of go in and you do the work to diagnose what the problem is, you can be really intentional about where you focus your efforts and what you're doing to try and, get results out of your work that you're doing. So I don't have a silver bullet, but I think with anything, it just has to be super intentional. There's different things that are going to fall into different categories. I think leadership is incredibly important. If you don't have buy-in from leadership, then it's very hard to get any of this work off the ground. But I mean, that might be a challenge for one organization. It might not for another organization, right? They might be fully bought in. So it really just depends on where people are in their journey and what challenges they're facing.
It was there was two words that someone on this thing said a while back. This was probably about a year ago, and he turns around and goes, "Stay curious." And I've been thinking about it for a year and
Love it.
trying to attach it to everything I can. I'm like, stay curious. What if? What about the other side? See another side. What if we're wrong? All that type of stuff, right? And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm blonde. I look at it as a bit of a skewed way. The line isn't very straight. It's more like a roundabout, goes around the houses. But it's like, if you get a bunch of folks, right, it's under the same company, yeah, you've got the same similar vision. We want to go in the same direction. You've got to have some sort of like synergy between the folks. Yeah, okay, so. But you don't want them to be the same person, because they're going to say the same shit. So you might as well only have one person, right? And then
100%.
can we just hire robots? I was like, no,
Yeah.
we need a bunch of folks from random spots in the world, like random life stories. Okay, cool. Then we're all going in the same direction, mint. But what do you think? And then what do you see?
And it's so much to say to that point. But I think that in particular, that point is why it's so key for the tech sector to be focusing on this and to not just consider this some fluffy, nice to have tick box exercise. But I think, aside from all the research that you can point to that businesses perform better when they are diverse, for that reason that you're saying, right? Like diversity of perspectives and ideas. Like the tech sector is shaping the future. Like that's why you say, companies like Uber and Tesla and Google and whatnot, they're disruptive because they're changing the way that we do things. And if you have a small subset of society building those products that are changing and shaping the future, then, you run a very real risk of those products only serving a small subset of society and creating a big divide. So I think there is definitely like a lack of responsibility in some cases, not all cases, but I think there's maybe not a lack of responsibility, a lack of understanding of the responsibility that businesses in the tech sector have in terms of kind of the future that they're building and they're shaping. But yeah, I love that curious piece. And that's kind of part of, the journey that's gotten me to where I am today, is just being curious and asking questions and seeking different perspectives, which is something that doesn't always come naturally to folks. So again, intentionality.
Yeah, for sure. We need to be intentional about what we do. And it links with the self-awareness piece, right? Like you need to learn who the fuck you are, and then what are we doing? I think we've pursued intelligence and being right and wrong and binary, I guess, so far that we've missed all the colors. You know, there is color
Mm,
to be found in the gray. You know, it's not. It's quite often we're like, oh, it's black or white. You're like, well, we've missed a lot here, guys. We've missed a lot of nuance. You know, and
100%.
when you're trying to create something that has never been created before, you're gonna have to throw a lot of shit at the wall. And guess what? A lot of it's not gonna stick.
Mm,
But like you had to entertain incorrect ideas to then arrive at correct ones. You know,
yeah.
and I don't know. Maybe
And
it's a logical brain, but wouldn't a diverse pool of people allow you to get there sooner? The only problem is, right, you have to got to put aside that ego because a lot of people can see it as competition of, oh no, they're trying to take this, that, and the other, and it's not really the case.
yeah, I think there is definitely some ego that you have to put aside. And I think one of the kind of um, most underrated leadership qualities I see, at least, is active listening, which just sounds so obvious. And you ask anybody if they can actively listen, they'll probably say yes. But actually listening to folks with differing perspectives to yourself who have different life experience, the natural reaction that we have as humans is to rebut or to respond. And so as a leader, if you have, a parent coming to you and saying, hey, this parental leave policy isn't, meeting my needs as a parent, like a lot of the time you're going to get like well, XYZ reason we can't do this, or actually you're wrong because of this. And like the instant reaction is to respond to that.
Mm.
Whereas an active listener and a leader who is able to kind of put their ego aside is going to like engage their sort of the curiosity, and they're going to start asking questions and, well, why is that? How do you feel that way? And like, what is it that we can do? What can we change? And um, in a business sense, there's always a lot of competing priorities, so it's not easy to do. It doesn't come naturally, but to be like a truly empathetic leader and an inclusive leader, like I think that's just a muscle that more leaders need to build, because um yeah it's unless you're kind of part all the time that you're part of kind of the dominant culture, or the dominant group, it's very hard to see what the people from the underrepresented groups are seeing.
Mm.
Like privilege is blind to those who have it, right? So it's
Mm.
very easy to disregard something as a non-issue because it's a non-issue for you personally, and really dive into why it's an issue for that particular person.
Can you repeat that line again?
I don't know, what did I say?
The privilege is blind.
Oh, privilege is blind to those who have it.
Mm. That's kicked me right in the tits.
um it's true though, like it's true of my journey as well. Like my DEI journey, or like understanding my own privilege, came about because I got out of what I knew. I got out of kind of my comfort zone, and I put myself in a position where I was part of the non-dominant culture for the first time in my life. And I moved from New Zealand to the Netherlands, and before that, um, my life had been pretty vanilla. Like I had grown up in the suburbs of Auckland. I'd gone to a school where, most people looked like me, that probably had a very similar upbringing to me. Their family situations were quite similar to mine. And then all of a sudden, I was in a city where I was literally surrounded by people from all different walks of life who had just experienced far, far more, um, well, a lot of different experiences than I myself had gone through. And it was just a moment where I had to check my privilege. Like I wouldn't have seen that had I stayed in the community that I was in
Mm.
beforehand, right? It took me to kind of step outside and put myself in a situation where I wasn't part of that dominant group to really start to see my own privilege. So um, I think there are probably easier ways to do it than to move to the other side of the world, but that's what I want to help leaders explore without doing that.
Yeah, I think everybody's got to have that long conversation with the person looking back at them in the mirror,
Mm,
right? And a deep honest one, you know. And that's That's why I love fitness so much. I love the gym, the weights, or whatever it is, yoga, walk, swimming, or something. I was like, I think it strips back the emotional handbrake that we all have. I was like, I don't really want to have that conversation with myself because it sucks. It's hard, it's difficult.
Mm,
Yeah, but if you're like smashed yourself in the face with whatever activity you've just done, even if that's just a little walk around the block, I think you take that handbrake off and you go a little further into that abyss of yourself and you start getting into, oh, okay, shit. Yeah, maybe I was wrong. Or
mm,
okay, in fact, actually, no, I was right here. And then you start having the real truths.
yeah. I think like privilege as well, like although it's usually like quite an uncomfortable, it's an uncomfortable reflection exercise, right? Privilege is not something that you earn, and it's not something that you've done wrong, right? We all have different, well, I could go deep into like intersectionality, but we probably experience privilege in some areas of our lives where we are, less privileged in other areas. Um, and it's important not to feel guilty that you've done something wrong because you have that privilege, because it's not something that you've earned, right? It's just, it is what
Mm.
it is. But I think acknowledging your privilege then helps you to see, things that you didn't see before, and it helps you be an ally to groups who don't have that same privilege. So it's a really important um, exercise to go through, and it can feel uncomfortable, but you shouldn't beat yourself up over your privilege status or whatever you want to call it. It just is what it is.
Yeah, like that's something that's always been confusing to me, man. Like, it was never really a thing until I came over here. It was like I grew up working class, blue collar, no two pennies to rub together. Everybody's on the same council estate, black, white, or somewhere in between. Like, ability, disability, it doesn't really matter. Everyone's just trying to make it to the end of the week,
Yeah,
right? I was like, how do we not get stabbed, and how do we get through till the morning? And
yeah,
it's strange when people feel like they need to repent in a way for stuff that was never under their control. I was like, no, 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 guys, we should be going forward, not back. Why,
yeah,
learn from the past. I'm big history geek, right? So yeah, learn from
me
the
too.
past, no problem. But like, we need to go forwards, guys. That's the way that time's going. Let's keep going
Yeah.
forwards, not laterally, not back, not any of that stuff. Learn from one another. Yeah, great, but we're all going that way.
Mm,
And it seems like we're going back, digging up old graves, and just replanting them again. So
mm,
no, no, no. We need to band together, learn from one another,
100%.
and let's
The
go
learning
forward.
from one another is so so key. And it's a huge part of anybody's diversity, equity, inclusion journey, right?
Mm.
To learn from others who have different lived experiences.
I can really imagine that working in the tech industry is difficult with that, especially when you're interacting with tech all the time, right? Like I joke quite regularly that coaching saved me life, mainly because it's the people that taught me more than I could ever teach them. Because you have a
Mm,
conversation with them, you learn who they are, the intricate details of their character and the stories and the not so nice parts and the great parts, and you learn their family and all that type of nonsense. And you sit back and you're having a coffee, you're looking out to the sun, and you're like, how can somebody see the world that way? Like, that's fascinating. I can learn from that. And the next thing
mm,
you know, you start seeing all these colors around rather than that black and white instance. You're like, oh
mm,
shit, there are so many perspectives out there. And in everybody's eyes, they're right.
mm. I don't know if everybody's eyes. I think in some people's eyes, that's for sure.
But you think people are they think they are doing something that's wrong? Or do you think in their
No,
eyes, they're doing something that's right?
I think, there's definitely a group of people out there who understand that there is no right or wrong way to go about one thing, right? I definitely think there are people who are stuck in their ways, and it's very hard to think of, things changing. I think it
Mm.
kind of goes a little bit into the growth mindset, and
Mm.
like, people who have a fixed mindset, the world is the way it is. I I remember being on maternity, well, was I on maternity leave or I was about to go on maternity leave? and I was like ranting and raving to my mother about how poor like parental leave is here in New Zealand compared to what I'd experienced when I had my son in the Netherlands. And her response, I was like, I don't know, I was on a rant and I was like, I'm going to start a petition and I'm going to do this and I'm going to change the world type thing. And my mum just turned to me and she was like, well, just is the way that it is, Sian. And
It is what it is, yeah.
the only reason that you know any different is because you've had a different experience. Most people haven't had that experience and they're just content with what it is. And I was like, wow, that is quite the pep talk, mum. Like, imagine if you were Kate Shepherd's mum. She was going out to get that vote, and no, it's just the way it is, right? Like, so I think that people who have a growth mindset can adopt this idea a lot easier than people who kind of see the world in black and white and see things as fixed. It's just the way it is. But yeah,
That's the true battle, right? With yourself against that voice that's like, it is what it is. But it's never going to change. I might as well keep my feet planted. I'm stuck in the mud like the game that you play as kids. And you're like, no, you can't, man. Like it's funny. I meet people across all different socioeconomic backgrounds, skin colors, male, female. It doesn't matter. Like their enemy is them being fixed. Oh, I can never get out of the council estate. Oh, I'll never be loved. Oh, I can never do this. And you're like, what the fuck? Guys,
no self-limiting beliefs there.
you put yourself in a box. Yeah, no wonder you can't stand up. It hasn't got 100%. A lid, guys. Stand up and get out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I won't lie, the work that I do, sometimes I ask myself, what am I doing? Like, why am I putting myself through this? Like, there's a lot of hard conversations. There's a lot of uncomfortable situations. I have times where people are just flat out not nice to me. And you reflect and you think, well, man, it would be a lot easier to do something else right now. But I think for me at this point, like, I'm just, there's so much that's kind of led to this point in my career and my personal life that I couldn't drop it. Like, it would be easier to, but and yeah, you definitely have those days where you're just like, oh, why do I bother? Why am I doing this? But usually it's a day, it's 2 days max, and then I don't know, I have some sort of epiphany in the shower and I get back and just start doing the same thing. Well, maybe not the same thing, maybe slightly different, to get a better result, but get back on the horse, so to speak.
Always in shower, right?
I know. Shower thoughts are the best thoughts.
It's always in the shower, or you're doing carpool karaoke and on a road trip or something. You're like, in fact, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. Okay.
I have a theory about this because I shower in the morning usually after I get up, and I just feel like it's after my mind having that sleep time. There's probably some science behind this, so this is like Sian's very uninformed opinion, but yeah, I just feel like after my brain has had that shutdown time to actually process all the thoughts of the day, and there's that shower moment just like releases all the brand new ideas.
Oh, it's what writers do. They get up in the morning and before they do anything, they open up a book and they just basically brain fart everything down. Yeah.
I've been known to do that in the middle of the night as well. Wake up.
Oh, you're one of those.
Jot it down. Go back to sleep. That's what I mean, though, right? Like, I just can't stop thinking about it. Like, this is beyond just like an occupation at this point. It's like it's what I think about. I read this quote the other day, and I'm probably going to butcher it. And it was like, find something you love, never work a day in your life. And it was like crossed out. And it was like, no, find something you love and you work every single hour of your life, like, because you never stop thinking about it. And I'm like, it's so true.
Or you find something that you love and you let it kill you.
Hopefully not that.
Those extreme poet quotes, right? Well, I think it's true. I think you have to, because it's what brings that spark in your eyes. It's what lights you up. There's a little skip in your step, and there's also that little twang in the words coming out of you. It's like, yeah, you're alive. You are a fucking live. Not just, all right, I'm gonna go to work again. Maybe I'm gonna get a couple pints on the way home to to numb myself out. I was like, "Jeez, guys, come on, life is a little bit more than this. You know,
Mm.
we got to go out and search for that life, search for truly living." And some people find it, some people don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm reading a book at the moment called Grit. I don't know if you read it. It's really good, but it talks about one of the chapters talks about sort of like finding your passion and how people who, you know, have found a passion in life tend to do better with their work, but how like that advice in itself, just find your passion, is not very useful. And what would be more useful is how you actually find your passion, because you know there's so much expectation put on you when you're finishing up high school to know what you want to do, know what you want to go and study, know what you want to pursue, and like who knows at that age? Like I left high school and I went to be a flight attendant for 2 years because I thought my passion was travel, and that was probably the like oh no, I don't have regrets. I think everything happens for a reason in terms of my career. It's all sort of led to one point, but that was a terrible job for me. It was definitely not suited to be a flight attendant in at the least. So, um, but yeah, I think that journey to find your passion isn't necessarily like an epiphany moment that you have one day, but it's an accumulation of a lot of things that happen over time. And it's okay to experiment, and it's okay to try different things and not know until you're in your 30s what it is that you want to do. Yeah.
Of course, we are not what we do. We are who we are.
Yes.
What we do is just something added onto us. You know, it's a couple of stories that we can tell sharing a pint in a pub. It's like, no, no, no. Who
You
we?
all this talk of pint, you're making me really thirsty.
I have done a couple where people are like, you don't mind if I can crack a coldie, do you? Like, no, do you think? Like, I'm not your mom. I'm not gonna tell you off for drinking a lager, having a conversation.
Love it.
But it's what adds a little bit of flavor to life, right? Like I think what's the Oscar Wilde quote? If you know what you want to become, you'll become it. That is your punishment.
I've not heard that one. It's good.
Yeah, he says we're nouns, not verbs.
Mm,
And again,
interesting.
something that I think about a lot. My brain goes everywhere. It's not a pretty place.
No, it's a curious place. It's a good place to be.
Definitely curious. There's many ways to skin a cat. There's many ways we can help one another, and it is the synergy between people, I believe, that helps this world spin. If we snap our
Yeah.
fingers and the human race gets wiped out, yeah, okay, life will continue. Great, but
Mm,
that's a bit of a nihilist way of thinking, right? How about we just say, well, if we have the capability to destroy it, we also have the capability to build it and to be a positive thing. So we have to actively and intentionally, right, come full circle, go about that every day and at least 51% of the time. And that's yeah, but what if we're wrong? What about if we're going down the wrong path? Like I guess we're gonna find out, mate.
yep, exactly.
Chief, I've got 3 questions.
Go.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
So you gave me headers up about these. So what did I write down? um, I don't know if you can call this advice because I read it. Nobody told me it, but I'm taking it as the best piece of life advice. And it's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I remember reading that and it just resonated so much because there's no personal or professional development that happens in your comfort zone. And if you're trying something for the first time, chances are you're going to be shit at it. And being shit at something isn't the nicest feeling. So even like this conversation, right? And you're like, hey, do you want to talk about my podcast? I'm like, that sounds horrific, but sure. Say yes to things that make you feel uncomfortable because that's the only way to move to develop yourself.
Yeah, for sure, man. Just say fuck it, why not? Let's figure it out. You know?
Exactly. I say yes and then I try and forget about it until like a day before and then I freak out about
No,
it.
please. No need to freak out. You're just talking to some fucking blonde guy from the north who's still trying to figure this thing out. I'm just a street kid, mate, and people taught me a lot of things along the way and it's a fucking honor to be able to stand in front of people and teach them a thing or two about fitness and then
Love it.
talk to strangers on the internet.
Love it.
What's the worst piece of life advice you ever received?
Um, so I don't know if this like really falls into the advice category, but when I was just about to move to the Netherlands, so I was like in my mid-20s, and I'd finished up my permanent job, and I was doing some temping work to kind of like tide me over until we left the country. Um, I was working with this old Dutch guy who told me that I would find it really, really hard to find my way in the Netherlands. And he could not have been more wrong. That experience has shaped so much of my life, and it's been, one of the most rewarding and rich experiences that I've had in my life. And I sometimes think, what if I'd listened? Like, what if I was like, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe that's not a good idea. So I don't know if he was actually advising me not to do it, but yeah, if he was, it would have been crap advice.
Yeah, like I talk to a few folk quite regularly about moving from the city or the country that you're born in. I think everybody has to. You've got to shift. Because it forces you into a different mindset, a different perspective, a different story, set of circumstances, and they're like, oh, isn't it going to be hard? Well, for most of us, yeah, it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do, but it's going to be worth it.
100%.
I think
Like
you have
having
to do it.
kids.
I really do. I just want to grab my sisters and like throw them out somewhere and just be like, yo, go figure it out. Go to Azerbaijan. I don't know,
I want to do
anywhere.
the same. I definitely feel like that sometimes. And I look at certain people, I'm just like, oh, you just need to get out of here. You just need to get out of your own little echo chamber, because there's a whole world out there.
100%. That's all the kids back on the block back home. But those kids now have kids who also have kids, which is a scary thing.
Ooh, yeah. That's when you start feeling old.
Yeah, we're like, nope, fuck that. I'm out.
Yeah.
What are the 3 words you would tell your younger self?
Okay, so the first one we've touched on quite a lot, but I literally wrote this down before we had this conversation. But the first one's curiosity,
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah, I just think you have to question everything. You have to just not take things at face value, and don't believe something just because an authority figure said it to you. Get out of your echo chamber and seek out different perspectives. My dad used to say to me when I was younger, you better marry a rich man, because I liked nice things, right? And it never occurred to me at that point in time that I wouldn't need some dude to come and bankroll my lifestyle. Like, it never occurred to me that I could potentially be successful in my own right, because it was something that somebody who was an authority figure to me had said to me, and I held as truth. So I think, my biggest, what I want for my own children is just don't take what I say, like take everything I say with a grain of salt. Go and figure out your own way, figure out your own perspectives, find things out for yourself, have your own opinion.
Seems like
Don't
a bit
marry
of
a
a
rich man.
seems like a bit of a rogue thing to tell your daughter.
Yeah, I think it definitely came up more than once.
Oh, hmm. I
Someone needs
don't
to pay for your nice things, Shan. You better
I,
marry a rich man.
I, I don't think I'd yeah, I don't think I'd give the same advice. That's a bit okay, fair enough.
Oh, I feel like I've been so rude to my parents in this call. I've talked about my mum and my dad, but honestly,
Uh,
they're great parents. They're brilliant parents, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I mean, I think every parent themselves thinks about things that their parents did that you think,
yeah,
not going to do that, not going to
for,
do it that way.
for sure. And we nitpick at things, we learn
Mm-hmm.
from it, and you wouldn't go back and change it because then, the whole butterfly effect, you will then
Mm,
not know what you know now and all that type of stuff. So it is what it is. We learn from it, we go forward.
100%.
Boss, thank you so much.
Uh,
This has been an honor
did
and a
you want the other
privilege.
two words? I
Oh,
forgot
of
about the other
course,
two.
throw them at me.
We went so deep on curiosity. What were the other two? I did write it down. Oh,
Go.
authenticity, I think, was the second one. Because I spent, um, a huge amount of my teenage years and my early adulthood, wanting to be accepted, wanting to belong, wanting to be part of a group and fit in, and in doing so, probably tried to be what other people wanted me to be rather than just authentically me. And I think the irony in that is the second that you shed that notion, and you just be you, you find your people, and you find the people who will accept you for who you are. So definitely something I wish I had known a little bit earlier. And then the third one was random, but hear me out. I wrote intelligence. And I wrote that because it wasn't until I was probably reached my 30s that I shed my own self-limiting beliefs on, like, that I wasn't smart enough to do something. And I don't know when or why or how the switch flicked. But the second that I did, like I set my heights, I set my aims higher. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of, you know, my teenage years and my 20s thinking that I just wasn't smart enough or wasn't good enough to do something. And yeah, I think that's probably a little bit smarter than I gave myself credit for.
1,000%, mate. Fucking 1,000%. Mate, I appreciate what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the chat. It's been good. It wasn't scary.
Been an honor and a privilege. Yeah, and talking to Northerners ain't that bad, We just talk a lot of shit and probably swear too much. Definitely swear too much.
As long as I can understand what you're saying. But I was able to understand what you're saying, so brilliant.
Mate, thank you. We'll speak soon and you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Alex. Catch you later.
Pal.
Bye.
Take it easy. Bye, everybody.